it wouldn't have happened. I'm here. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to talk about this. Somebody has to change the world, right? There has to be a hero to this story somehow. So why not me? Why not you? It's got to be somebody. So I might as well swing for that home run, swing for the fences. And if I strike out, it'll be the most glorious strikeout ever. And no one will really blame me because I was swinging for the fences. They're like, yeah, not too many people can hit the ball that far. But what if I actually hit it?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm super excited to have my friend Amanda Catarzi on with us today. Amanda, what's got you excited right now?
I'm excited about just like finishing out this year really strong and gearing up for the next year. I'm just so excited about the future. Like there's so many good things happening on a regular basis, and I love to be a part of that and help perpetuate that as well. So,
and one of the great things with what you do, right, is you just started a company. And I love when I ask what you really wanted the audience to get out of today's conversation. You talked about that we're all diamonds and that we're multifaceted and we all have a voice, and our voice deserves to be heard.
mm-hmm.
So I kind of want to get your take on that message and what it means to you and kind of how that relates to how you started your new business.
Yeah. So I guess like in the process of starting my own business, the whole conversation of niching down always comes up, and it always feels so wrong to me, because, and I'm like, why am I so resistant to this idea of niching down? I don't want to do it, and everybody's telling me I have to do it to be successful, and everything in me is like rebelling against that. And so trying to understand why that is, what in me is resistant towards that, why I'm resistant towards that, and who should I listen to, right? Who should I listen to about that? Should I listen to what I'm feeling? Should I listen to these other people who are successful, what they're saying? Because a lot of people have a lot of opinions about how you should do everything in life. And that's how they've done life. And that's how they want to continue doing life. So really taking a step back when you hear other people giving you opinions and recognizing, okay, well, do I want their life? Because that's the lens they're seeing their thing through, me through, and giving their opinion through. So in niching down, I would love to discuss this with you because it's still kind of a fresh thing in my mind, but we're multifaceted. Humans are so multidimensional and multifaceted beings that's why it feels so violating to niche down, because you feel like you're putting this very one-dimensional flat label over yourself of, I'm a writer for coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but no, I'm not, right? You have this like, you just got, no, I'm not. I'm also this, and I'm also that, and I can do this, and I can do that. And so it's so interesting to me, like, what that thing that as soon as you slap that label over you, that wants to resist and explode, almost this like impulsive reaction of, I'm so much more. And why we feel like that's so, why I guess I feel like that's so important, and how to capture all those facets in a brand without overwhelming your target audience and without overwhelming, the general public, but still being very clear and concise about your messaging, your branding, and how you're presenting yourself. So that's the idea that I've been grappling with like these past like 2 months, and maybe that's why I feel so confused today. But
Man, I just want to pause right there for a second. And for anybody watching and listening, how much can you relate to that? I know I'm sitting here saying, hell yeah, I relate to that all the time. I get that conversation all the time. What's the niche? What's the niche? And like, even for me, like when I think about the ideal person that would be my ideal match, I don't I don't know many of them that exist. Like for me, that'd be another disabled entrepreneur, entrepreneur that has disabilities. But I'm so in two very distinct spaces in my mind of, yeah, I help entrepreneurs figure out why they're dealing with loneliness, find a better connection with themselves. But I also do it from the lens of, if you have a teen with disabilities, I'm going to be able to crush that conversation because I live that life.
Mm-hmm.
And we just, like you said, multifaceted and trying to put us down to one thing and make that our identity, right? Because that's what that is. That's our identity. And it's like, well, that's not the only thing I want to be known for. It's, yeah, I think a lot of us go through that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it looks like shifting back and forth. That's the way that I try and look at that. I say, who's sitting in front of me and what part of me do they need right now? Um, so that's how I look at that. But it is an interesting conversation. And I'm curious with the multifaceted and using your voice. 10 years you were a crime fighter is what I want to call it. Like, so you did work to help people that were experiencing sex crimes. And how has that life experience for you um, shaped how you show up now that you stepped away from that direct day-to-day experience? But how's that helped you in what you're doing now?
I think it's really prepared me to do what I do now. So those 10 years in social work really taught me how to get to the root of a person really quick in about a 5-minute conversation. And not saying like I can make mistakes all the time and people aren't that quickly figured out. But I can pretty much I can read your red flags. I can, by the vocabulary you choose, by how you present yourself, I can pretty much get to the root of who you are supposed to be, despite whatever front you're putting on, and pull that out. Like find your gold and pull it out, and pull on those heartstrings that are driving your choices. And so because I know how to do that with survivors and be able to motivate them, gain trust, build rapport with them rather quickly, and get them to make major life decisions in a short amount of time, I feel like I have that ability in working with clients too, because when you first meet a client in my industry, as far as copywriting, branding, and marketing, I have to understand why the hell are they starting their business? What do they really want to be selling? Who they really are? Because despite what you say you are, you're going to project who you are, right? You can say, oh, I'm super confident and I love myself. But if you really have some self-hatred going on, that's going to come out in the way you communicate and do life and make choices. So I think it's really important to help people peel off those layers, kind of like how you help people peel off labels, and get to the root of who they are and pull that gold out. Because back to the niching conversation, I kind of come to this idea of your personality is your niche. and your identity as a human is your niche, because we are all so different. And if we can tap into our true selves, even if I'm just a copywriter, Amanda's copywriting is going to look really different than Nate's copywriting skills. And that in itself is a niche enough. Either I'm going to be a fit for you or not. Like, I'm not for everybody. And if I stay true to my identity, and the true identity that was placed inside me after I peel all those layers off, and I project that, that's going to attract a certain type of people and a certain type of clientele. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Well, it's interesting because as you were talking, what I was thinking was the idea that, look, you can talk the talk, but that's not what's going to get people to make change. That's not really what's going to get people to give you that trust, because like you can gain it for a little bit if you're talking the talk and you know the right words to say, but we're all creatures of behavior.
Yeah.
And I was on a call yesterday where I was like, look, this is for all the coaches. Your client isn't going to remember the shit that you say. They might remember it for a little bit, but they're going to remember how you showed up, like, and what you did on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you think about, like, you were in such an interesting spot with what you did in social work, and I think it's really interesting because of where we are in the world today. You had an ability to connect with people that probably the first time you even thought about it, you're like, well, how in the hell am I going to make this happen? Because
Yeah.
you work with other governments to create legislation. So I'd love for you to explain to people kind of how that showed up in your life, and like what that experience was like, because man, if there's something that we're learning right now, I think it's the importance of being able to communicate with all different kinds of people.
Yeah. I think it, like, even thinking about that whole situation, it's like, did that really happen? I don't even know if I believe that really happened. And when I tell people, I'm like, these people probably think I'm lying, like, because it's so out of the ordinary and random. But the story goes is my CEO told me at a staff Christmas party that she wanted us to expand to New Zealand. And I said, oh, I have contacts in New Zealand. Total lie, totally bluffing. I can do that. And she goes, yeah, can you reach out to your guys? I said, yes, I can reach out to my contacts in New Zealand. Had no contacts in New Zealand. But I was confident that I would find some, and I would become their best friend in a very short amount of time. And I did. So I reached out to a couple of different of my contacts that I actually did have and said, hey, do you know anybody in New Zealand? Do you know anybody in New Zealand government? This is what I want to talk to them about. This is what I want to look at. I need all the collateral on their legislation surrounding this issue. And I need reports. I need their social reports, from their government saying like what crimes are on the rise, what they're seeing issues. And, within a couple of weeks, I had already established a couple contacts in New Zealand government. I had all of their legislation in books. I got about a stack of books like this big worth of data from them. And I went through all that and found all the loopholes and issues with their legislation. I created a presentation and I submitted it to the head of chief of New Zealand. So in New Zealand, it's an island, and they only have one police department over all of New Zealand. So versus like here, there's like cities and different areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once I got to the head of the New Zealand Police Department, I was basically hitting some top-notch government people. And I presented him with my data, with my proposal, with what I feel like needed to change, and said, can you get me in front of government officials? And he loved it. He was totally on board. He said, yeah. And mind you, it was just phone calls. Like, I have no other relationship other than I'm here to help, I'm here to serve. And I think people really respond to a genuine passion and a genuine servant's heart. So most people interact with me because I have a lot of energy, and people are drawn to that. And I love like smiling at people because they always smile back at me. And so it's so funny because I've always hated my smile like most of my life, and more so recently, the more I've interacted with people, like people always tell me like that's their favorite thing about me, and I'm like, I don't have that great of a smile, but okay. But people are attracted to that joy and that energy and that passion, and that makes up for I don't know what I'm doing. That makes up for maybe I said something stupid. That makes up for I might not have all the answers, but I want to solve this. Let's do it. And people will come to that. They will give you money. They will write checks, and they will write legislation with you if you are passionate enough. So yeah, that's basically how I did it. And then we ended up counseling New Zealand government on their laws surrounding prostitution and the legalization of prostitution and their major porn and domestic violence issues that they have.
And so, reflecting back on that for yourself, what's the biggest takeaway you think you have from that whole situation?
I think having the balls to say that I can do that, even though I had no real way of doing it. But I was so confident in my ability to make something happen. And I knew that if I said, hey, I have contacts in New Zealand, I'll reach out to them. There's that 50-50 chance, and I talk about this all the time, there's a 50-50 chance that it's going to work. And like a 50% chance that something like that's going to work, that's really, really good odds. So like, let's say it didn't happen. Let's say, I couldn't establish contacts in New Zealand, and my CEO came back to me and said, hey, did those contacts work out? No, they didn't work out. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's not a problem, like that's even a win because I got to talk to my CEO that much more, and she saw me as someone who was a go-to person who could execute, and even if the execution failed, I was executing, so then she had me in her mind as a point person that if she needed something to get done, she would come to me. And that just opened up so many opportunities. Like, obviously it was successful, but it also opened up so many more opportunities for me within that organization to help lead the organization and build the organization into what it is today, which is one of the best anti-sex trafficking organizations in the nation. Their rate of success with their clients is 80-ish%, which if you know anything about rehabs, anything about, detoxes, the rate is really low. Like, people always go back. Like, it's super normal. And so to have that high of a success rate is pretty insane. So yeah, I think like the whole lesson from that is just to be willing to say yes and recognizing that the odds are in your favor. Like, the first step towards saying yes, you start that ripple effect in the universe, and the universe responds to your passion and to your servant heart and to saying yes. And next thing you know, like, you're taking over the world, right?
I just want to take a moment for anybody who doesn't see this and they just listen. I mean, you should see the look on Amanda's face. You can see the joy and the excitement coming through the screen for sure. I love the reframe of the 50-50, like, and choosing to look at it as there's a 50% chance that they're going to say yes. I do something similar with reaching out to, I've created a folder called the no folder in my email, and I will reach out to people where I automatically think that there's no way in hell they're going to respond. And I just put it in this folder. And the idea is exactly what you talked about. If they say yes, that's amazing. Like, That's a
Right.
win. If they don't respond, they don't respond. I didn't lose anything by doing it. So I think for me, and to tell the audience, have some balls, right? That's what it starts with. Have some confidence in yourself, even if, like Amanda, she didn't know anybody.
Mhm.
She just said, I feel like I can figure this out.
Yeah, and I was in a place where I had confidence in my ability to figure it out and to problem solve, and I had problem solved enough that I knew that I stood some pretty good chance, right? And I think I don't have a lot of self confidence. Like honestly, I fake a lot of stuff. I bluff a lot of stuff. Talking to you, I'm super comfortable with that, right? Going in front of Congress, holy cow, I'm sweating bullets. But when I walk through those doors, it's like I'm meant to be here. This is my place. You're going to listen to me. I'm an expert. Like this whole persona comes on, but I am terrified, right? And I'm terrified I'm going to, say the wrong thing or make myself look stupid or whatever. But I shove that in the corner because fear is a liar. And I'm like, if I wasn't supposed to be here, I wouldn't be here. It wouldn't have happened. I'm
Yeah.
here. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to talk about this. Somebody has to change the world, right? There has to be a hero to this story somehow. So why not me? Why not you? It's got to be somebody. So I might as well swing for that home run, swing for the fences. And if I strike out, it'll be the most glorious strikeout ever. And no one will really blame me because I was swinging for the fences. They're like, yeah, not too many people can hit the ball that far. But what if I actually hit it
Yeah.
and take us to the World Series? Like, what if I actually hit it?
Oh, man. And that's such a powerful analogy just for the fact of the most successful baseball players that make it into the Hall of Fame fail a shit ton more than they ever succeeded. Like they have so many more strikeouts or outs than they ever had home runs. But every time they go up to the plate and they take their shot every time. And this is so good. This is so good.
It's so excited. I'm so hot right now.
Hey, this is way better, people, than what usually happens, because in shared communities that we are a part of, I'm known as the guy who makes people cry, so we're doing good today.
Listen, you've made me cry enough in our interactions and you coaching me through some pretty tough stuff. And I just want to honor you for that. Like you were so insanely generous. You're probably like the nicest person I've ever met in my life. But
Oh,
your wisdom and your ability to ask the right questions at the right time and not rushing any part of that process, but like honoring each and every moment kills me and pisses me off, but it gets me to where I need to be. Your just coaching ability is insane. Like, and I've been so grateful to be able to interact with you on that level before. So I just
I
want to thank you.
appreciate that. It's so funny. Just hearing you say that, I'm like, yeah, I probably do piss a lot of people off.
You make me go angry because you don't allow me to like run. You don't allow me to run, basically. And I'm like, then I get mad and then I cry.
Yeah, and that's so powerful. I think even with things like copywriting, right? Looking at it from a lens of sometimes we have to allow for a space just to be there. And I'm sure you find that with the clients that you work with as you're talking, like, yeah, you guys want to get to the root of the cause, but sometimes it requires just sitting there and like looking at each other and being like, I'm not sure right now. Um, just giving people space, man. It's so big.
Yeah, even in marketing, it's really well known that white space is a great thing, and like you don't hear that in podcasting world. Blank quiet air, dead air is not a good thing. But in writing and in marketing, having that white space actually invites the reader in, because you're creating space for their thoughts and their processing and their eyes. So there's not so much that's burning up the calories in their brain to process. They want it to be easy. So as long as there's space for them to be and engage with your copy, you're going to have an engaged reader, which is going to turn into copy that converts, right? It's going to turn your reader into a client or someone who purchases something from you. So it's so funny because even back to the niching thing, everybody has so much to say. And knowing when to say what is really, really, really important in marketing and in sales copy. So, it's like having boundaries in your writing almost. Like they're not ready to see that part of you. I know that part of you is really important to you and you really want to get to it because it's really fun, but they're not ready for it yet. And easing your target audience and your client almost into this journey with you and having that buy-in so you can present those more vulnerable parts is the key to good writing.
Let's say, what's your favorite part of storytelling?
I like helping people storytell better. So even though I'm doing a lot of the copywriting for them, I always end up training my clients how to write better in that process. So I'm writing for them, but I'm saying, this is why I said this, and this is why I didn't include this, and this is why, you weren't converting before, and really bringing them into the psychology behind it all and understanding how to understand people who are not like them better. That's super fun to me.
Yeah, it's that is an interesting process of trying to connect with someone they communicate differently than you, and it's like the five love languages type idea, right? So if you have a different love language than me, if I want to have a better relationship with you, I gotta learn to speak your language, not try and force mine onto you, or else we just won't be in a relationship. So that's so interesting. Is there anything before we end today that you want to make sure and leave the audience with?
I think in life, in social work, in relationships, in sales, in business, in writing, understanding the person you're trying to connect with and what they need right now is really important. So when I did social work, I wasn't walking up to girls saying, hey, come to detox, get clean with me, I can change your life. I wasn't saying that. I was saying, hey, do you need condoms? Hey, do you need a hot pocket? Do you need some water? Do you need some clothes, some flip-flops? And I was meeting them right where they're at. Same goes with sales and writing. If you're trying to shove your answer down their throat to a question they're not even asking, they're not going to like you very much, right? It's about having the time to have a conversation with them to understand what they actually need right now in this moment, finding a solution to that so that it sets them up to ask the question you want them to ask.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot in business, especially early on, as you, the business person, is figuring this out. You think, man, I've got this awesome idea. Why don't people see it? And it's because we're not practiced enough in asking important questions where, yeah, we've got the ability to help people solve problems, but we're not asking them, hey, how is this problem showing up for you? We're just like, this is what worked for me, and it should work for you too. And that just doesn't happen. I will tell you a quick story about, I won't say who it is, but we have a shared friend, and we were talking one time, and we were talking about the comparison game, like comparing ourselves to other people, and it was people that we knew, like, because we know a lot of successful people doing great stuff. And she's like, what do I do to get that person's voice out of my head? And so this person, through talking with them, I learned that they lived in Portugal at some point.
Huh.
And so I said, so when you think of Portuguese, are you the only person you know that speaks Portuguese? And they said yes. And I was like, well, take that voice and translate it into Portuguese. And she said, man, I've been doing this for a while and it's working. Like you got to look at the person, and no matter what business you're in, you have to meet every person where they're at to the best of your ability. That's how you win. That's how you help them win. It's just super powerful. And I want to know from you, when you think of being heard, what does that look like to you?
Oh, you always ask these super deep questions. I mean, I think it's hearing what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. So to truly hear someone and to know someone, they can tell you, but what else are they saying that they're not saying, right? So their facial expressions, their physical appearance, how they present themselves online, maybe things you know about them, like you know a lot about me, like what else am I saying that I'm not saying? And when you connect with someone in that way, where you are interpreting both the verbal, the visual, the behind the scenes stuff, and when I say something, like it's really important to me for voices to be heard, because that I've not had a voice for the majority of my life. So when I say that to you, it means something different than if somebody else said that to you, maybe. So I think being heard is processing what's being said and what's not being said as well.
Absolutely. Those nonverbal cues are so important. And I would tell anybody, like, I think communication is the number one skill that we all need. And I would speak directly to parents right now. If you are spending way more time with your kids right now than you were before 2020 because of circumstances, teach your kids how to communicate. Like, that will save them so much in the future. It will make them better leaders. It will make them better people. Communication. So if somebody's interested in having you help them uncover their voice, discover their voice, wherever they are with their voice, if they want your help in making it more clear so that they can make the impact they're called to make, how can they do that?
They can go to my website. It's inkeryco.com. So INKERYCO.com. Or they can go to I'm on Instagram like all the time. So they can find me on Instagram at Amanda Cat.
All right. So make sure, if you have issues with using your voice to make the difference you want to make in the world, reach out to Amanda, see if it's a good fit, and start sharing what matters to you, because people need to hear your voice. And the final question is, what does No Label Defines Me mean to you?
It means that I am multifaceted, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I'm like a diamond, baby.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you too are like a diamond. Remember that no label defines you. Your label should always empower you. And you get to lead, you get to love, and you get to listen. Lead yourself so you can lead others. Love yourself so you can love others. And listen to yourself so you know how to listen to others. You can catch us next week with another episode of No Label Live.